This is a very interesting session. We are going to talk about uh, three types of situations or questions that we can encounter in PI. The first, or the types of PI that you can encounter. The first is case based PI, right? So we will understand what cases mean in an interview. The second thing that we are going to see is an interview which goes into the guesstimate zone, right? So we will see guesstimates, how to tackle them and what they are. All right. The third thing that we are going to discuss is psychometry. All right. And I'll give you examples of how these interviews are conducted. Now, it's not necessary that all these three separate interview types are conducted for a company, but in some way or the other, or in some types of interviews, these become a part of the interview process, right? Especially for those firms which are looking for analytics or consulting domains. Right. So let's get started with the first one. What is a case-based PI? Case-based questions are situations. A case means a situation. So you are generally given a problem statement or a situation, and you need to possibly find out the possible options to solve the given problem, or you might be given certain options as well and then asked to evaluate those options, prioritize them, and then give a recommendation and or a contingency plan, right? So depends on what phase of a case the interviewer wants you to test on. So typically, what's the case? A case has an introduction, background, a problem statement, then once the problem statement, that is the objective, is set, then you generate options and criteria, set criteria for evaluation of those options, evaluation of those options. Thereafter, you evaluate those options, prioritize them on the basis of the given criteria, and finally end up with a recommendation and a contingency measure, right? So let me give you a simple example. In one of the interviews, a student was asked, "What would you do if you become the vice chancellor of your college?" So it was a general case, right? What changes will you bring if you become the chancellor of your college? So the student had to think about different kind of problems or issues which needed addressing and could be solved better, and then come out with scenarios and possible solutions, right? I remember the student replied in giving different case solutions and options, like increasing the in time for girls, and increasing the library access time, then improving the lighting facilities on campus, etc., etc. So it all depends, right? But basically, your analytical skills, your ability to think and provide solutions, that is being tested in such questions. All right. Another question I remember, someone was asked that it was a case, the interviewer asked that person about which city you belong to, etc., etc. And the next question was, how many big bazaars are there in your city? And the person answered. And then another question was, if you had to open another big bazaar in the city, which location would you choose? Will you open or not? And then it became a case, one question leading to the other with subsequent information flow happening, right? So cases are discussions, right? Meant to check your thinking ability and your problem solving ability. All right. So coming to the next one, let me go to psychometry first, then I will come to estimates. So psychometric interviews are those in which consistency is being checked, and your typical behavior and patterns, your personality overall is being checked. So a very laymanish example of psychometry would be, if I ask you a question, how comfortable you are in mingling with unknown people, right? And you say, and I give you options, and let's say you say 100% comfortable, right? And then maybe after another 10-15 minutes, I ask you another question that can you tell me how good you were in your some friend's wedding? Did you interact a lot with your with other people? Did you make new friends? And there, suppose you replied that no, I did not make any new friends. I just went and come back, right? So you are being inconsistent. So one, your personality traits are being tested. Two, You are being tested on whether you are genuinely putting yourself up front in the interview room, or actually, or are you faking it, right? So psychometry is a lot about being genuine about your personality. It's all about introspection. When someone asks you a question, which is a psychometric analysis type question, you should just think about yourself and be genuine in answering. Every person has a different personality. It's not about right or wrong. It's about you should speak the truth so that you can remain consistent, even if the question is turned around and asked after some time, right? Okay. So coming to the third one, guesstimates. Now, guesstimates means, as the word implies, it's a mix of guessing and estimates, right? So, can you make estimates using guess, right? So, that is what guesstimates are. Let me take a very simple example. If I ask you a very, very simple question to give you an example, uh, how many rooms are there in a particular hotel, for example? Which maybe is suppose you have gone for an interview in a hotel, and you entered the hotel, and the interviewer asks you how many rooms are there in this hotel. It's a very basic guess that you need to make. So you just don't randomly say that 40 or 50. That's not how you answer, or 30 or 20, right? You think aloud. In consulting analytics interviews, you think aloud, because the final answer doesn't matter much. What matters much is your thought process. Are you able to take a problem statement, break it into layers, and eventually come up to a final number based on certain assumptions? That is what guesstimates are all about. So let me answer this question. So suppose I am asked this question, the first thing I try to think about, and I think it aloud, right? I think about it that, okay, when I entered, I saw how many floors were there in the lift. I saw that there were 5 floors. Okay, so that is level one of information that I use. Okay. Now, currently in the lobby, when I entered, there were two halves, right? So now I'm coming to a particular lobby, and in that lobby, there were two sides to go. There was a central lift, and right now, suppose I have been called for the interview in the last room, and which says 108, right? So I get a hint that possibly, and it started from 101 maybe, right? So possibly, or maybe I might have seen some arrow. So I make a guess that, okay, so there might be 15, 16 rooms in a particular floor, and there are 5 floors. And now I simple use a multiplication, and I say my guess would be there are 80 rooms in this hotel, right? So this is a very simple example of what guesstimates are. Questions usually asked, I'll give you some examples from real interviews, like how many aeroplanes are flying in the air right now above India, right? So now in this kind of a question, there might be different ways to approach. You might start by thinking how many tier one airports are there, how many international airports are there, how many domestic airports are there, and then think about their frequency and etc etc. Or you might start by thinking how many people in India could travel, right? But you need to move from one level to the other, making assumptions and stating those assumptions clearly and thinking aloud, right? And taking proper multipliers and proper numbers to finally reach out to a number. That is what guesstimate is all about. So all these types which we discussed right now, these are common types being asked because these days the interviewers, they want to look at your analytical and thinking ability more than what points you have written in your resume. So I hope these concepts are clear. Thank you very much.